All right, good evening and welcome to the April 2nd, 2024 City Council regular hybrid meeting. I'm Mayor Salim Neese. This evening's hybrid City Council meeting is being brought to you in person and by Zoom. We're also broadcasting on the city's YouTube channel. We welcome anyone wishing to watch the meeting live to join us at the city's YouTube channel via Zoom or Mercer Community Event Center. Welcome and thanks for joining us tonight. Council members, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. City Clerk Andrea Larson, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Andral.
Here.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Weicker. Here. Councilmember Weinberg.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Here.
And Mayor Neese.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a quorum present. Everybody's in person tonight. And next we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Council in council chambers, please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We now move to approval of tonight's agenda. If there's no questions, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Jacobson. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson. Aye. Councilmember Andral. Aye. And Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, next up we have City Manager's report. Welcome, City Manager Jesse Bond.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. All these little messages popping up again. All right. Casey's going to assist with my screen share. Next slide, please. This is a look ahead to this week and, to your next council meeting. Just a reminder, that is April 16th. I know tonight, later tonight when we check council attendance, I know next week is spring break for those of us that have kiddos in school. Would be great to know who's in town next week and not just for coverage purposes, if anyone's going to be gone. Looking ahead to board and commission meetings, design commission meeting tomorrow, April 3rd, and the Parks and Recreation Commission will hold another joint meeting with the Open Space Conservancy Trust on Thursday at 5 o'clock to continue their work, on the open space zone. Next slide, please. All right, I wanted to provide an update on the police modular buildings. We're continuing to work to operationalize the 2 new police modular buildings we took delivery of a couple weeks ago. I want to give a huge shout out to the city's public works teams. They've been working over the last 2 weeks to connect these buildings to utilities, water and sewer infrastructure, to be specific. We also set the infrastructure in place for the 3rd modular building that we'll take delivery of over the next few months. In the meantime, we've transitioned to connecting those buildings to electrical and data service. We anticipate the 2 modular buildings we have now will be energized by the end of the month, and then we'll be turning our attention to all the things we have to do to move in, furniture, computers, IT, even key cards. So work is happening. I think we're still a little over a month out from being able to use these buildings, but we're making a lot of great progress, and that is thanks to many, many, many staff members coming together to make this happen. So my broad thank you to all of them. Next slide. Looking ahead to longer-term solutions for our building situation, Council will remind you, although you don't need to be reminded, at your March 1st City Council planning session, you provided direction to staff to begin working on planning for the new public safety and maintenance building. That work is underway. That new building is intended to house our police department, all of our maintenance teams, a good portion of public works, and IT and GIS. We have been intensely meeting with our consultants. There's a picture here. That is the public works team. We had a couple big meetings in this room last week. The purpose of these meetings is to better understand our operations, how work flows in the facilities, and our consultants are now starting to put essentially the building blocks together to get us to a concept design, which would come to you in June, along with a preliminary concept. I'll remind you, this is not just a building, it's also a yard, pretty major yard where we will house police vehicles and all of our maintenance equipment. So lots happening behind the scenes. I've barely skimmed the surface here, but I wanted to make you aware that almost every day we have a meeting or something happening related to that new building. Next slide, please. That picture is a look up inside the chimney at the Luther Burbank Boiler Building, in case you were wondering. We are underway with some really important work on that building, specifically seismically retrofitting that very old structure. That includes chimney reinforcement and renovation of the restroom buildings. So that work is happening now. We've got the building fenced off if you've been down there. The contractors, we're also working on grading inside the building to prepare for a new floor slab. And then we'll be roughing in some plumbing as well for the restroom and concessions area. So really exciting. This is phase one of a major waterfront improvement project at Luther Burbank Park. The second phase is next year. It's the docks and the rest of the waterfront area. So really, really exciting. Next slide, please. The water meter replacement project, the city, as you may recall, is in the process of replacing all of our water meters. That's about 7,800 water meters in our system. As you know, these water meters, as they age, they often underreport the actual amount of water used. And these meters, our current meters, all have to be manually read. So we are transitioning to an automatic meter infrastructure system. And in the process right now of replacing all those meters, so I'll probably be checking in with you every council meeting as to where we're at. We have 951 new meters that have been installed. We have a ways to go yet. We expect all of the new meters to be in just a few months. So I'll keep you updated. Work is happening. Council, we're also still working on the other phase of this project, which is the antennas. And we'll be back to you with an update on that in the very near future. Next slide, please. I wanted to follow up with you, as I know many of you received requests from community members about the signage at the new bike skills area. And we had mentioned we were working on it, and we had our insurance company assisting us as well. So I wanted to let you know we have installed new signs at 4 of the Island Crest Park trailheads along 84th. These signs are letting drivers know that they're approaching a road, cyclists know that they're approaching a road, as that was one of the concerns that was raised. We also adjusted the sign placement within the bike skills area, specifically noting where jump lines start, signaling where lines merge, and improving other wayfinding in the park. If that lingo doesn't make sense to you, I think Mayor Neese or his son can take you out and show you the ropes. So if there's any other feedback you'd like to share, obviously this is a really, really high-use facility. Very exciting, lots of happy kids and adults out there, but we're always looking for ways to improve and learn now that this new amenity is open to us. All right, next slide, please. The playground replacement projects. This parks levy that was most recently approved for renewed included funding to replace over time most of our playground structures. The cadence is about 1 or 2 playgrounds a year. We are currently underway with the planning for the First Hill Park playground. It's one of our oldest playgrounds and really in need of a replacement. We have a survey that we opened, and actually we've had a tremendous response. I heard we were well over 100 responses. So we're going to continue to collect survey data just to inform the initial look at the playground replacement. Council, one of the things we learned when we went, we had a public meeting on Roanoke Playground, is that we had really poor attendance. Not for lack of trying. I think it's just busy families, and it's just a busy time. So we're trying something different with the First Hill Park playground replacement. We are going to pre-record a presentation that will be shared out around April 30th. And then community members can watch the presentation and provide input on their own schedule. So this is new. It's a new approach, but we realize these standalone public meetings are maybe not reaching folks the way we intended. We're working with our partners to get the word out, and we'll let you know how that new approach works. All right, next slide, please. Upcoming events. Reminder, Leap for Green is April 20th here at the Community Center from 10 to 2. I'm pretty sure that's on your calendars, but I'll have Casey Thompson double check that. So come on out and support our recreation staff and our sustainability team. It'll be a really, really fun day. Next slide, please. Some good news. All staff meeting. Hey, I wanted to just say it's not often that we bring all the staff together. We try to do it at least once or twice a year. We had an all-staff meeting last week. We had over 100 team members here at the community center in person for treats, a report out, official welcome of all of the new employees that have joined us since the last meeting, and a fun little team building exercise. So my thanks to the team for coming together, and we'll do it again soon. And before I conclude this presentation, Council, I promised the mayor that air was working, and we're struggling now to get the AC on. As you can tell, the room's getting really warm, so I'm going to step away and go troubleshoot that. We do have fans we can bring in, and I apologize. We'll continue to work on the HVAC system in this room.
Thank you. We'll move to our next item of business, which is appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to the City Council on any item, except items requiring a public hearing, any quasi-judicial matters, or campaign-related matters. Tonight's agenda will include in-person public appearances and remote public appearances via Zoom. Individuals wishing to address the council may do so in person or by Zoom or telephone, provided they register with the city clerk by 4 p.m. today. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be called by name. Remarks must be addressed to the council as a whole and not to individual council or staff members. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the city council may be requested to leave the meeting. Please speak audibly, state your name and city of residence for the record. There'll be a timer on the screen. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. When your time's ended, I'll thank you for your comments and move to the next speaker or item of business. City Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker tonight is Addie Smith.
Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Addie Smith. Today is April 2nd, 2024. I'm speaking before the Mercer Island, Washington City Council. 5 years ago, on November 26, 2019, I was arrested after defending myself in a hate crime attack. My attacker had been stalking, threatening, harassing, and verbally and physically attacking me since June of 2019. She was a convicted felon for trafficking. She was going into other people's apartments and stealing their packages and items and selling them for money. These council members, all sitting here, received emails from me telling them the instigator of these attacks was recruiting people like her to hurt my daughter and I. The instigator and her recruits would follow my daughter, who is biracial, she's Asian and African American, and ask her what kind of N-word she was with the hard R. My daughter was a child, and I can imagine if she was Jewish, or some of you who look like white people, if you all were experiencing this type of disgusting racism, you would demand it be stopped, much like you were so upset at a church getting paint thrown on it. But when it comes to Black people in our lives, all of you have been completely dead silent. They would tell my child that her dog, her service animal, looked like he had mange. The last time I spoke before the council 2 weeks ago, I told you about my former employers lying to obtain orders of protection. And after going to court, the judge found that I was asking them for help to stop the attacks and remove those fake orders of protection. Last year, my attorney asked this city council before you and the judge to increase her pay to represent me, and her request was denied. Immediately thereafter, the judge granted her motion. The judge granted her motion to withdraw as counsel. Shortly thereafter that, the judge refused to grant me another attorney, saying that I was making statements about the people of Mercer Island that weren't true. The city of Mercer Island is suppressing hate crimes. They are covering for the police officers who refuse to write police reports. They are covering for their previous interim city manager who should have been monitoring the applications and wait lists. My former employers were allowing wealthy whites who didn't qualify for low-income housing to live in low-income apartments in the Hadley. I've decided that from now on, I need to know who my enemies are before I vote for them, and will be voting for Donald Trump for president. As a more than 35-year Democrat, I am completely disgusted.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Carolyn Boatsman.
Good evening, council members. I'm here to speak about the proposal to reconstitute the Planning Commission. I've already sent my comments regarding my reasons for opposing the proposal. I would like to add a few additional thoughts. I understand the concern about the workload of the Community Planning and Development Department, but I recommend taking an incremental approach to address it. One important step is already in the works, and that is approval of a new position in the department. While the impact of this change on managing the immediate workload is examined, the council, staff, and Planning Commission chair could identify ways in which utilization of staff time could be reduced in the commission as it is now configured. Commissioners hold extra meetings when staff has additional work for them. When staff can do the work, the commission can respond. So having additional staff on board should make things move along more quickly if sufficient meetings are scheduled. Managing the operations of a planning commission takes considerable time, no matter who is in the seats. But why not try out the impact of the new staff position on managing the workload while examining operational efficiencies and go from there? This would allow time to improve public awareness of any proposed change and allowing for input. I really want the council and staff to be able to succeed in getting the work done. There are so many things, exciting things going on. I want all of us to succeed in the broadest sense. I think it's important to go about improving efficiency in an incremental manner, all the while preserving the cohesiveness of the community. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Alex Siteman.
Hello, can everyone
Welcome.
hear me okay?
Yeah, we sure can.
All right. Hello, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Alex Sitman. I'm a senior at Mercer Island High School. I'm currently working on a community action project with Ethan Chernikoff and Felix Joinson, who are unfortunately unable to participate with us tonight. I use my electric scooter to get to school and to work, and I've had a number of near collisions with motorists. In my experience, some motorists do not pay attention and cross over into the bike lane, putting my safety in jeopardy. Because of my experience, we're focusing our project on improving the safety of micromobility on the island, and we want to express our overwhelming support for the draft of the shared use path design summary that was proposed recently. We sent a survey to the students at the high school and found that students believe the safety of micromobility on the island is not at the level it needs to be. Many have shared concerns for the lack of dividers, and this draft proposes different divider options, and we want to express our support for the divider proposed in Figure 1 of the draft, a physical barrier between the road and the bike lane. This is the ideal shared road and most safe option for bikers and motorists. Thank you for taking our thoughts into consideration and supporting this plan. I hope you will take the perspectives of students into consideration as you evaluate this plan. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Our next speaker tonight is Kirk Griffin. Second call for Kirk Griffin. Mr. Mayor, I do not see Kirk Griffin in the audience on Zoom or in the attendees. I'll move to the next speaker.
Very well, thank you.
The next speaker is Tenley Tobin. Second call for Tenley Tobin. I also do not see Tenley in the attendance.
Very well.
We'll move to the last speaker tonight is Daniel Thompson.
Welcome.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Daniel Thompson, and I live on Mercer Island, and I'd like to just address two issues. The first is the Jacobson ethics matter. I've sent you some long written materials. I won't go over those again. Here's the central issue. You can't have a materially different standard of review and burden of proof at the council level than you have at the Superior Court. Because Jacobson has the right to appeal, and he will appeal. And when he goes up to the Superior Court, I sent you an email with the statute. The burden is on the city to establish that there is substantial evidence in the record to support the conclusions of the hearing examiner. If you've done your homework, and if you've read it, and if you've watched the hearing, there's no evidence. That's really kind of the rub. It's very strange. You know, the ethics officer made a tremendous error going outside the record. But the problem is the hearing examiner never identifies any evidence that makes up his preponderance of the evidence that he speaks. So there's no end game here for the council. I mean, if you can come in here and say, we're not going to review the hearing examiner's findings of fact and conclusions of law, that we're bound by them, it doesn't matter. It's going to go to the Superior Courts. You know, I know that Jake, and I feel the same way, that this is kind of a sham decision. So he goes up to the Superior Court. BO's got to come before him and say, where's the substantial evidence? He's going to say there's no evidence. It comes back here reversed, and the city and the council look bad in front of the citizens. The second thing, so I guess the point is there's no end game. It's going to end at the Superior Court, so think like the Superior Court. The Planning Commission, I support the revamp. I've been appearing before them since 2013, and the reality is the issues today are too complex. It hasn't helped that this council seems to treat the Planning Commission as a place to put highly political, ambitious people. There's a real dysfunction down there. They don't like one another. You go down there, they don't listen to the council's direction, for example, in the comprehensive plan. They don't listen to the planning department on staff workloads. And you go down there, a good comparison is the Parks Commission. There's a fantastic commission. They involve the citizens, they make recommendations that come up before you, and all the issues are resolved. You're getting proposals from the Planning Commission that just haven't been vetted. They're toxic, and the citizens haven't been involved, so you have no idea how the citizens think about them, and that's the problem. So I really think getting some professional planners on there is really going to help, along with some citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no further speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Very well. We'll move to our next item of business, approval of a consent agenda. The consent agenda contains AB 6437, the March 22, 2024 payroll certification, certification of claims for March 15 and 22, 2024, and electronic funds transfers of January and February 2024. City Council regular hybrid meeting minutes of March 19, 2024. AB 6438, Autism Acceptance Month, Proclamation number 324. AB 6439, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Proclamation number 325. AB 6440, Johnson & Johnson Opioid Settlement. Council, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Jacobson, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Weicker? Aye. Councilmember Andral? Aye. Councilmember Weinberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum?
Aye.
And Mayor Neese.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, the consent agenda is approved. Our first item of regular business is AB 6443, disposition of Code of Ethics complaint against Councilmember Jacobson. A Code of the Ethics complaint was filed by Richard Irwin against Councilmember Jake Jacobson on December 7th, 2023. The complaint was found to be sufficient by the ethics officer on December 14, 2023. A hearing was conducted by the ethics hearing examiner on January 30th, 2024. Following the hearing examiner issued their findings, conclusions, decisions, and recommendation, deciding that violations of the ethics code were committed and recommending to the City Council no sanctions or penalties in disposition of the complaint. The code requires the City Council to afford deference to the hearing examiner's recommendation and to take action in disposition of the complaint. The Council can adopt the hearing examiner's recommendation, which is MICC 2.60.00070, paren E, close paren 1, close paren, no sanctions or penalties, as the City Council's final action in disposition of the complaint, or it may impose one or more remedial sanctions or penalties set forth in MICC 2.60.070, paren E, close paren 2, close paren 2, through close paren 9. Pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren little f, close paren, Councilmember Jacobson requested that deliberations by the City Council be conducted in a meeting open to the public. However, he may not vote in any matter involving himself. So council, I'm going to open it up to, this is a council matter, so it's not really a support, there's no presentation by staff. But is there any discussion or motions? Councilmember Androl.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to say thank you to Dan Thompson for the very thorough analysis that you provided. I will tell you, I've been a lawyer for over 40 years. I read this decision multiple times, looking for a single shred of evidence, linking, no pun intended, the Jake FOR MI to Jake number 4 MI, and I could not find it. There is an entirely inappropriate footnote in the determination of sufficiency that seems to be the ethics officer taking the matter into his or her own hands and creating a fact, but nothing in the determination of sufficiency can be deemed to be true. The truth or falsity of any allegations was to be determined by the hearings officer. And the hearings officer was perfectly capable of citing evidence and testimony. He did so in a number of places and linked it to particular findings, but there is absolutely no evidence that supports the allegation that when you clicked on Jake FOR MI, you went to Jake number 4 MI. It's just not there, and I feel very strongly that we cannot, even if we are obligated legally to defer, that deference must be overcome by the absolute dearth of evidence supporting this. And I just don't want to actually put the city in a position where we have to go to Superior Court to defend something that's indefensible. So for that reason, I'm prepared to make a motion now to reject the hearing examiner's conclusions and impose no penalty for the ethics violations asserted against Councilmember Jacobson.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Weicker. City Clerk, did you capture the motion?
I got
To reject.
the hearing examiner's conclusions and
Impose no penalty for the ethics violations asserted against Councilmember Jacobson.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Jacobson.
We'll turn on my microphone first. I just have a few things I'd like to say. One of which is I asked that this proceeding be done in public because I think the public has a right to know about ethics and about ethics allegations and have the assurance that all of us are operating in the strictest sense of those, not only the statute, but what the unstated things that implies. I participated in the hearing and testified, and when I went to review the hearing examiner's rulings, I was puzzled because the only findings of fact do not support the conclusion. And I think there are those around here, probably Alfredo Moreno and others, that know that I'm certainly no whiz-bang when it comes to IT stuff. But that joke to one side, there wasn't any evidence, so I don't know how that one can say that there's a preponderance of evidence that what was alleged occurred. In any event, I have no desire to make this go on any further. The flip side of it is that I don't want to wear this either. So I have confidence in my colleagues that they will act according to their consciences, and I'm happy to leave it there.
Thank you, Councilmember Jacobson. Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I'll go after Craig.
Councilmember Reynolds.
I should have a question and then a comment. I'll just do the question first, which is a question for Mr. Parker, Ms. Bond. I want to make sure that I understand the relevant city code. My understanding was that the question of affording deference related to what penalty to impose, but that the council doesn't have a role in determining guilt or innocence. I mean, do we have the power to overturn the guilt or innocence judgment?
Councilmember Reynolds, you are correct that the deference referenced in the code is related to the action to be taken by the city, which is limited to the disposition, sanctions / penalties related to the findings that the violation was committed. Now, that's the hearing examiner's decision that a violation was committed, and the next step in the code that was adopted by the council, chapter 2.6 of the Mercer Island City Code states that the council will take action on the disposition, which means, selecting what type of penalties. 9 are described in the code, 1 through 9, and which of those 9s to impose as a remedy or remedial action for the violation.
So if I may ask one quick follow-up, if the council did vote to, in effect, overturn the hearing examiner's decision, what happens? Does that mean it just has no effect, since apparently the code does not allow for it?
Councilmember, as far as the impact of that, I would, I'm not comfortable discussing this in open session. This would be, something that would pose a legal risk to the city, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you with the council in executive session.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I think, when we worked on this ethics code, I'm trying to remember when this was, but it feels like it was either yesterday or 6 years ago. I think my recollection was that we put in this clause in terms of deference so that we would have a process that we would stick to unless there was something that happened that was way out of bounds. And I do think that this is a situation that is out of bounds. I think that I've read this a number of times and I struggle to see how the two connect in terms of the decision that was arrived at versus the evidence that was actually presented. I think the ethics code is important. I think that we all need to adhere to the ethics code to the best of our abilities, and I just don't see any evidence that Councilmember Jacobson violated that. It seems to me like there was a very large jump that was made between the determination of sufficiency and the actual process, the hearing process. So I will support this motion Councilmember Andrell is making. I think it's appropriate in this case.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilmember Weinberg.
So there was a footnote number 4 at the bottom of page 4 in the ethics officer's determination of sufficiency, which states, and I quote, "To be clear, the web address www.jakeformi.com redirects the user to www.jake4mi.com, i.e., the 4 FOR/4 appear to be interchangeable and both lead to the same web address. Furthermore, a screenshot from the Wayback Machine Internet Archive was shown during the hearing examiner's hearing at time index 21 minutes and 22 seconds. And it showed a web page recorded on October 17th, 2023, with the words loading, ... And then it had the URL jakeformi.com. And then it had the time and a date stamp of October 17th, 2023. And it was followed by the text, got an HTTP 301 response at crawl time. And it was followed by the text redirecting to, and then 3 dots, and then it said Jake mi.com. Both the footnote and the screenshot clearly suggest that the automatic redirection of the FOR URL to the 4 URL occurred on October 17th in that time frame, and whether or not that redirection was done by Councilmember Jacobson or someone working at his behest, it seems clear that at one point the redirection existed, and his email signature therefore did contain a link to his campaign website, and therefore created the appearance of impropriety in violation of MICC 2.20.120. And I therefore am not going to be supporting this motion.
Okay, council, any other discussion? Councilmember Anderl.
Oh, Wendy hasn't gone yet.
Sorry,
That's
I didn't
okay.
see your hand. Councilmember Weicker.
First of all, I want to thank Jake for doing this publicly. I think this is really useful to do out here in open forum with recordings on. And I just want to say I've been struggling with this ethics code since we adopted it years ago. And I was worried that it would be used to weaponize and politicize ethical deviances that might happen in extremes or in small cases. And in this one, it seems like there's some technicalities here that are being exploited, and certainly the due process looks like it was taken above and beyond where it was supposed to go with the process that we had set in place. So what I would like to do, besides supporting this motion tonight, is add reviewing the ethics code to our 2025 retreat as a potential work item for 25, because I think we can clean it up and tighten it up. So my hope is that we can make this code clearer so that we don't have these kinds of complaints come forward that I don't think hold enough merit to warrant the time, energy, and funds and certain angst that goes with that. So I had a complaint filed against me years ago, and it was very uncomfortable for the whole time. It was dismissed, but the whole time it feels like you're under a microscope, under a technicality that anyone can bring forward, and then you're under the suspicion of an ethics complaint that isn't really valid, I don't believe. And this is one of those cases, and I really, really don't want this code, for the intent that it's there, to be weaponized against this council member and future council members. I think the ethics code is meant to address real ethical complaints and situations that warrant the level of attention this complaint is getting.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Anderl.
Sure. I just wanted to say that I respect what Ted said in terms of that's his view, and he's entitled to it. It's my understanding, though, that the Wayback Machine information was not admissible, nor was there anybody to be cross-examined about it, nor is there any evidence that even if the redirection occurred, it occurred at either Jake's or anyone who was working for him's behest. It could have been a Google thing. We don't know that, so that proves nothing to me. The other thing I would just say, like I said, is I'm trying to protect the city from a lot of unnecessary expense here. If we can't defend this in Superior Court, then we should find a way to fix it right now. I feel as though the hearings examiner's charge was to it says, well, I'll just read it, subsection C of 2.60.070, within 30 days after the conclusion of the hearing examiner shall, comma, based on a preponderance of the evidence, comma, issue a final decision in writing, including findings of fact, conclusions of law, and a determination of whether any violation occurred. The hearing examiner is charged shall, which means must, and he did issue a decision, but again, I think we can find here that it was not based on a preponderance of the evidence, and so I think it's pretty clear that we are authorized to go forward as along the path that I proposed in my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. well, I'll take a brief turn and not just say zooming out and getting back up to 30,000 feet. You know, we, your council, are volunteers ostensibly, and we rely on the ethics code, which is code that we wrote and voted on and adopted, largely everyone here, to be followed. And this is a good example of how a code that prescribes that an ethics officer is to receive a complaint, is to take all of the complaint's attributes and consider them to be factually true, and then to make a determination of if they were true, did an ethics violation occur? And if they did, remand that to a hearing examiner to have a fair process hearing where both parties have equal rights and due process protections. And this is a great example of where that process broke. And Councilmember Jacobson's due process rights were stripped, and the ethics officer acted outside his authority, and the hearing examiner relied on it, and then formed a conclusion that is, in this case, malformed, because it's using information that is not fact, that is in fact duly noted as not fact by the ethics officer in forming that opinion. And so if we were to act on this and take an action, even if it had no penalties, that would do grave harm to Councilmember Jacobson and a disservice to the service that he's provided to this community for many years. I don't disagree with Councilmember Weicker that if this council that wrote that code, that adopted that code, that believes in that code, wants to tune that code up, that we will do that. And I will ask the city manager to create an opportunity for that to come back to us and look for additional due process protections that might need to be inserted into it. But at this point, I do believe that it's incumbent on us to stop this process due to the flaws. And so I will be supporting the motion. Any other discussion? Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, I do agree with the mayor and Councilmember Weicker that it's probably time to revisit the ethics code. That's something that just good practice to do periodically. I'm struggling a little bit though, and wondering if we watched the same hearing, because I've heard multiple speakers tonight say there was no evidence presented, when there very clearly was evidence presented in the form of the Wayback Machine, showing that there was a redirect going on. Now, one can make arguments about whether that evidence was admissible, which the hearing examiner apparently decided it was, and maybe he shouldn't have. I don't know. That's a legal question I'm not qualified to opine on. But he did admit it. One can argue whether that evidence is sufficient. I don't necessarily have a strong opinion on that, but I'm willing to trust the hearing examiner on that. But the statement that there is no evidence is just factually not true. And I'm surprised to see so many people here presenting that statement. But with that said, I think given the city attorney's comment that there might be legal risk to the city from adopting a provision that is contrary to city code, I think it would be appropriate to withdraw into executive session to discuss that risk. And I would defer to the mayor. I can't recall the procedure for requesting that, but I would like to request that.
Okay. City Clerk, can you advise the council member on his question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be the will of the mayor and the city manager if you wanted to go into executive session.
Okay. So if it's the decision of the mayor, I am not going to go into executive session. I'm going to call the vote. Is there any further discussion?
No, thank you.
City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg,
Nay.
Councilmember Andral,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum. Aye. And Councilmember Weicker. Aye. Passes 4-2.
Okay. Motion is adopted. Thank you. Our next item of regular business is AB 6444, Interim Regulations in MICC 19.16.010 related to emergency shelters and housing, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing, ordinance number 24C-03. And I welcome CPD Director Jeff Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. Can everyone hear me okay before we get started?
We can.
Excellent. Thank you. Hopefully this is a quick item here. We've got renewal of some interim regulations that date back to September of 2021. As we've discussed a few times here in recent months, we do have a couple of different sets of interim regulations in play for various subjects. As we were collecting ourselves together here a few weeks ago to get some things on the calendar for 2024, including renewal of interim regulations. We discovered that the same week we were doing that, these interim regulations related to House Bill 1220 and permanent and supportive housing expired the same week that we were doing that work, which was a little bit embarrassing for me, and I apologize for that. We did consult quickly with city manager and wanted to get these before you for renewal as soon as possible. So that's tonight, April 2nd. Part of the process for renewing them will also be to have a public hearing within 60 days. And we do recommend the council set that public hearing date this evening for May 21st, 2024. That would be within the 60 days and also provide sufficient time to do the public hearing noticing that's required by our code. I don't have much more to add other than that, so Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, and the recommended action here is to renew these interim regulations and also set the public hearing date for May 21st.
Okay. Council, are there any questions? Not seeing any questions. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance number 24C-03 for interim regulations to comply with emergency and permanent supportive housing requirements of HB 1220?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Weinberg, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. Any discussion? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Neese?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker?
Aye.
Councilmember Andral?
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Aye.
And Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I want to ask a question. Did you need another motion to set a public hearing, or was that sufficient to get your public hearing?
I would defer to the city clerk on that. Andrea, can you help us out with that?
We do not need a motion to set we've received the direction and we'll add it to the planning schedule.
Very good. All right. Our last item of regular business is AB 6441, City Council Planning Session Follow-up regarding land use work plan. Council, there's two items addressed in this item. We'll discuss the consolidation of interim regulations related to temporary uses and structures first, and then turn our discussion to the reconstitution of the Planning Commission. And we welcome back CPD Director Jeff Thomas.
Thank you again, Mayor. Ali actually is going to share screen and pull up a short slide deck. I'm going to run through the first couple slides with some comments, and then Mayor, when we get to, perhaps slide 5 of 8, will be used more as a guide for you to facilitate. I can introduce each item, and you can facilitate any discussion the council might wish to have on each of the items as we run through them.
Very good.
All right, Ali, we can advance to slide 2, please. Excellent, thank you. As the mayor mentioned, we're following up here on a few items this evening from the City Council planning session on March 1st, 2024. Specifically CPD-related motions that were made on that day. And the first one is the interim regulations related to temporary uses and structures. And then also the second one is the reconstitution of the Planning Commission. What's here on the screen are just simply the motions as they were reported by the city clerk from March 1st. And we'll get into each a little bit further as we move along here. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to do these in reverse order from the way they were presented in the agenda bill. The first item here, the interim regulations related to temporary uses and structures. We'd simply like direction. I'm not sure we actually need a motion for this, but maybe just a head nod that what we'd like to do from the staff perspective is to present proposed interim regulations to the City Council on June 4th, 2024 for public hearing and consideration. The interim regulations would be in effect for a period of 12 months. And what staff would like to do specifically is to take 3 outstanding CPD work items, specifically docket items 2310, which relate to temporary use regulations, docket item 2315, which relates to temporary use or structure permits, as well as existing interim regulations for outdoor dining, and consolidate those into a single set of interim regulations for temporary uses and structures. Again, this is, this would be successfully implementing the motion that was made from March 1st. And it would also, in my opinion, take 3 existing items on our work program and take care of them in one clean swoop of interim regulations, as they're all related. So, Mayor, I'm happy to turn it back over to you here temporarily if council would like to discuss that, or if you just want to give a thumbs up, we could forge ahead here with the rest of the work here in this agenda bill.
Perfect, thank you. Councilmember Jacobson, question?
It's not really a question, but I'd be happy if we need a motion to make the motion. And if a motion's necessary, I'd say this. I think this does a couple of things. And that is, we as a city don't.
Councilmember Jacobson, can you please move closer to your microphone?
I'll turn it on. As a city, we don't move fast, and that's not I'm not being critical, that's an observation. And we move carefully to be sure that we are doing the right stuff. And I think having interim regulations like this will enable us to deal with problems that can be dealt with more quickly, that don't require the same level of scrutiny and handling that more weighty matters do. And also the benefit of that is that if with the implementation of interim regulations, we can see how something works. So we have a test lab. And I think that's beneficial to the city. I think it's beneficial to the residents who have a need for interim regulations. So I'm strong. If you need a motion, I'll make a motion. If not, I'll raise my thumb.
Well, let me ask the city clerk. We have an outstanding motion, and really all we're looking for is deviation from the motion.
Yeah,
If there's a
and I
will of the
believe that
council.
Director Thomas was just looking for the direction tonight. We could do consensus or a thumbs up would be sufficient.
Okay. All those supporting the direction provided by staff, thumbs up. Looks like you have 7 there.
Excellent, great.
Good job.
Well, we'll get to June 4th, and council will evaluate that, but I'm confident that we can put a good program together for the council to adopt.
Okay.
Okay, Ally, if you can share screen again, perfect, and we'll move ahead. Okay, a couple of comments here related to the Planning Commission reconstitution, and then again, we'll get into the 11 items that were in the agenda bill. So here we're seeking direction on some details to continue with the efforts to reconstitute the Planning Commission. Those are the 11 items we're going to discuss tonight. We'll present these. There's a menu of options for the items. But depending on the selections that are made, they'll need to be incorporated into amendments to Mercer Island City Code Chapter 3.46, which is all about the Planning Commission. And then we would bring that back as an ordinance for presentation to the City Council on May 7th of this year for further consideration. Exhibit 1 was attached to your agenda bill. It gave a mock-up, a sample or an illustration of the nature of the amendments that would be required to MICC Chapter 3.46 to be able to complete this effort. The one new piece of information I'd like to add, we made an inquiry to MRSC, who did a little research on the city's behalf as to whether there's other cities in Washington that do have paid planning commissioners. We did hear back from them on Monday of this week, very timely. And MRSC informed us there are 3 other Washington cities that they are aware of that do compensate planning commission members. Those are Bonnie Lake, Duval, and Monroe, all in the area, general Puget Sound, central Puget Sound area. The range in compensation for these 3 jurisdictions, my understanding ranged from $25 to $100 per meeting, depending on which city it was. So with that, I think we can move forward to the next slide. And Mayor, this is where I'll go ahead and introduce each item perhaps individually, and then I'll turn it back over to you for any council discussion, and then we'll just move to the next item. So the 11 items here are spread over 4 slides, I believe, and we'll just start with number 1. So, and these follow the same numbering as the agenda bill. So effective date of a planning commission reconstitution, when, after the motion on March 1st, staff did some work behind the scenes, trying to take the council's motion to bring information back. 3 effective date options were identified, July 15th and September 15th of this year, and January, that's a typo, I believe that should be January 15th of 2025. The reason why the 15th of the month was identified was, the thinking was council would be able to take action at their first regular business meeting of those respective months to appoint planning commissioners, and then the reconstituted planning commission would become effective, and then the planning commission would be able to hold a regular business meeting the last Wednesday of those 3 months. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it over to you for discussion on item 1.
Okay, thank you. So council, there's about 11 different menu items that we're going to have to go through, and my plan was to try and just do thumbs up to get consensus around the 11, to build a motion that we would then be able to discuss and have a vote on. So I know that there will be varying degrees of support for any or all of this, but the step 1 is to try to get to a motion that we can then debate. So, Councilmember Weicker.
I think it's easy to say January 15th is the best date, giving us time to figure this all out. July seems too soon, and September, I think we're all taking a recess in August, so whatever we're going to do, let's not do it until first of the year.
Yeah, so I tend to agree that the July 15th, so all those in favor of selecting the the January 15, 2025 start date, thumbs up? All right, looks like you have support for that. The next slide.
Yeah, next item. The composition of the planning commission. So option A here, having 4 paid practitioner non-residents and 3 layperson residents, that was embodied in the motion from March 1st. 2 other options the council may wish to consider would be the flip of that, option B, which would be 3 paid practitioner non-residents and 4 layperson residents. And then a middle of the road option is option C, where you could have 3 paid practitioner non-residents, 3 layperson residents, and then I guess like a super commissioner of sorts. So that would be a paid practitioner and a resident of Mercer Island. Mayor, back over to you.
Yeah, before we go beyond the deck, can we go to number 11 real quick, just to give a preview of
Sure.
one other item that interplays with this? Can you go through the number 11 real quick?
Yes. Item 11 is planning commission seats, short and long-term options. There's a couple options here. I think the first decision point with this would be if the council, was interested in moving the planning commission long-term to a 5-seat body instead of a 7-seat body. So that would be option C on this list. If the answer to that question is yes, option C would be your option to go with. If the answer was no, then you can look at options A and B to maintain a 7-seat planning commission, but then whether you decide to fill the 2 seats that are expiring on May 31st or not. So those are essentially options A and B there.
So, Council, if you would bear with me, I'd rather deal with 11 before we get to the composition in terms of the numbers. Councilmember Anderell?
Oh, I was just going to say thank you for that. I think we should talk about how many before we talk about who's in the seat.
Yeah, so I'm happy to look for direction from the council on A, B, or C on number 11.
I would like to offer my support for a 5-person commission.
Okay, which is
And
C.
Maybe ultimately a 5-person council, but that's another story for another day.
We might get there if we don't get cooking.
We got to get people to run.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Jeff, sorry to put you in the spot here, but do you have a sense of other cities of our size or service level, which I understand is kind of harder to pinpoint, but do those tend to be 5 or 7 or other?
Yeah, there is some fluctuation in my professional experiences along the road of my career here. I have typically seen a 7-seat planning commission. However, I have worked for a city that is actually significantly larger than Mercer Island, that actually had a 5-seat planning commission. So it's a mixed bag. Sorry to run right down the middle of the road there.
All right, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? Councilmember Jacobson.
This is with a five-person commission, is there a problem with getting quorums? Because generally speaking, a quorum is majority, and that means three people. And I noticed from my experience on the utility board, which I believe is five, we've had some problems occasionally with people who couldn't make a meeting for some reason, and we struggled to get a quorum. So I don't know if
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah, I suppose the risk level of not having a quorum could go up slightly with having a five-seat planning commission. In my prior professional experience, it never seemed to be a problem, but, you know, it could have been just the people who were on it at that time, so.
Oh, thank you.
Councilmember Reynolds.
I think Councilmember Weinberg and I are the only two that have served on the Planning Commission before, and I'm sure he'll comment on his experience at an appropriate time. But I would say in my experience, 7 was very valuable. I think that every person brought a different perspective to the discussion and added value at different times during the discussion. And I think by limiting the attendance, or limiting the members, you limit the perspectives you encounter. I think it's very important to take your time and make appropriate decisions on these issues, and I think we worsen that problem if we reduce the count. I also have had my hand up for a while. I wanted to ask Mr. Thomas a question about his presentation. Is now an appropriate time to do that?
Feel free.
Mr. Thomas, I was really surprised by your statement that the pay had been $25 to $100 a meeting, if I remember correctly. I would assume as land use professionals, that's probably significantly below a typical consulting rate for a person like that. And especially when you consider that, at least when I was on the Planning Commission, meetings were often 4 or 5 hours long, and there was several hours worth of prep time involved. So why do people do it? I mean, I understand if they're residents of the community, but why would a non-resident want to do it, especially if that might create conflicts of interest that would make it difficult for them to do business in that community? And I realize I'm asking you to speculate, but maybe you have some inside knowledge from somewhere.
Yeah, Councilmember, it is a good question. I think I would just simply respond that we get, you know, it's not only just land use planners, but, you know, land use attorneys, for example. We get folks that are in the industry that do look for other opportunities to serve over and above the regular day jobs. It's not unheard of to have planners and planning directors. I think it's a little crazy myself, but serving on a planning commission in the community that they live in addition to having a day job. But professional organizations, I have volunteered my time for years for a couple different professional organizations. I know when I speak with BO and, you know, our contract city attorneys, there's professional organizations that, you know, land use attorneys get involved with as well. So it is an opportunity. You know, as this motion came together on March 1st, and we've had a chance to think about it quite a bit here in the weeks that have passed since then, the month that has passed. You know, compensated planning commissioners, that I do believe that I was a little skeptical at first on March 1st, but as I've talked with some folks and thought about it some more, I think there is an opportunity here if the council does direct this, that we can get some folks interested in serving on the Mercer Island Planning Commission and helping out, if that's the direction of the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so ready for a thumbs up? Thumbs up on 5? Thumbs up on 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so you got consensus on that, option C.
Okay, so
So
then,
now-
Ally, can we, we'll go back to slide 5, I think, with item 2. And while Ally's bringing that up, I'll just get us off and running on that then. So then what we'd be looking at would be slightly modified numbers then for those 3 options, where we would have option A, I believe, would be 3 paid practitioners with 2 layperson residents. And then option B would be the inverse of that, 2 paid practitioner non-residents with 3 layperson residents, and then option C would be the 221 with a paid practitioner and a resident as the board.
Okay,
Mayor?
Councilmember Weinberg?
So this agenda bill is a solution in search of a problem. The Planning Commission was formed decades ago to advise the council. The 7 city council members all have aspects, have to govern all aspects of the city: utilities, police, fire, finance, parks, YFS, facilities, general administration, as well as long-term planning and land use. But the 7 planning commissioners only have 3 areas they need to focus on: the growth management, land use, and development regulations. And because the Planning Commission has a narrower focus, it can invest the time and effort that those 3 topics deserve. And until 2021, the City Council typically described to the Planning Commission what help it needed, such as formulating residential design standards. And the council then stepped out of the way and let the commissioners hold the necessary surveys and hours of public hearings, and then months of sweating through the details with staff to compose legislation. And for decades, that has worked because the council gave the commission the space and the agency to do its job. And since 2021, the council's instructions to the Planning Commission have gotten much more prescriptive, with detailed legislation formulated at the city council level, in one instance to 4 decimal places, that the Planning Commission was then asked to approve as is, with essentially 0 agency. And then in 2022, the legislature followed suit with its own prescriptive instructions, placing further numeric constraints, limiting the space and the agency with which the Planning Commission can do its work. If there is a problem to be solved here, I believe it centers around having 3 layers of government: the legislature, the council, and the commission, each trying to do the job that the commission is best suited to perform. Further reducing the Planning Commission's agency by placing a majority of its members with what amounts to part-time, non-resident staff members is not the solution to this larger problem. It's not going to gain any efficiency. The staff will still have to hold just as many meetings and explain the details of the proposed changes just as thoroughly as they do today. What bringing in off-island paid residents clearly would do is reduce our residents' representation. We are a democracy, and we need to respect Mercer Islanders' right not just to appear at that podium over there, but also to sit here in these chairs and to help advise the council on making the tough decisions about planning for the island's future. I therefore move that we table this agenda bill until such time as the authors can provide a clear definition of the problem that we're trying to solve and sufficient evidence for how the solution that they are ultimately proposing will solve it.
Councilmember, can you please repeat your motion? You went too fast.
Happily.
Let me first ask, can we table a motion that doesn't exist?
You can
Because we don't
table
have
an
a
item.
we don't have a motion, we don't have anything on the floor.
You can table an item to be brought back at a future date.
Okay.
Okay, so I
Second.
will repeat the motion. I move that we table this agenda bill until such time as the authors can provide a clear definition of the problem they are trying to solve and sufficient evidence for how the solution they ultimately propose will solve it.
And I seconded that motion.
Yeah. All right. So moved by Councilmember Weinberg, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. Do you have any further discussion on your motion?
I said a lot. I think like to hear what people think.
Councilmember Reynolds, do you, as a seconder of the motion, want to say anything?
Yeah, I didn't know this was coming, but I think it's a wise and appropriate course. What concerns me is the definition of what good practice is in problem solving, and it seems to me that the most essential step in any problem solving exercise is to define the problem and then identify the universe of possible solutions, and then evaluate the pros and cons of each, and pick the appropriate solution. We've skipped the first step. We haven't really defined the problem, and even if we had defined the problem, we've jumped to a solution when other solutions are possible. So for example, to the extent that we have concerns with the Planning Commission, as far as I know, we've made no attempt to give feedback to the existing Planning Commission and tell them what our concerns are and see if they can address them. And I think that's disrespectful to the members of the Planning Commission, and it's just, frankly, just not good decision-making until we've gone through the proper problem definition process. And I don't think we've done that.
Okay. Councilmember Weicker.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Does that mean we wouldn't change the planning commission to 5, and we wouldn't make that change by January? Like, is your proposal of this whole thing, or just this?
It's the
paid
whole thing,
consultant part?
the whole agenda
The
bill.
whole agenda bill.
Yes.
So to clarify then, that would mean we would be trying to fill vacancies.
That's right.
The current law would exist, yes.
Okay, any other discussion? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Weicker? Nay. Councilmember Jacobson?
Nay.
Councilmember Reynolds?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum?
Nope.
Mayor Neese?
Nay.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Aye.
And Councilmember Andral.
Nay.
2 to 5, motion fails.
Okay, so motion to table fails, and we're back to thumbs up on member composition options. What we had, just a review, was A, B, and C. A being 2 and 3, B being 2 and 3, and C being 2, 2, and 1. Councilmember Weicker.
Can I just, so, I don't know if this is a question for Jeff or Jesse, but say we couldn't find that paid practitioner, would we have a default to leave it open? Like, what happens for Plan B if we don't find those professional folks? Especially the one that would be the paid Mercer Island professional. Like, we need those 5 seats, what if we can't fill them?
Yeah, Beal, if I can implore you to come on the screen for a moment. We've had this with the Design Commission. Perhaps you could address that for the council, would be great.
Well, we'd be searching until we find it. You know, once we have a quorum, we can start work on the planning commission. However, you know, until all the qualifications are met, we would keep looking for the candidate that meets the criteria and that gets approved to serve in the planning commission.
Okay, Councilmember Weinberg.
So we have 3 options in front of us. I'd like to move that we add a 4th option, which is that any vacant seat could be filled by a layperson.
So a modification to the 3, really,
Yes.
not a standalone 4th.
Sorry?
You're not suggesting a 4th option, you're suggesting a modification to the 3 existing options. Basically, let's say we're looking at C, which is 221. You want a modified 221 that says, to the extent that anything is unfilled, that it would go to a layperson?
I guess what I'm suggesting is that for all 3 options, if we have a vacant seat that we don't get a qualified professional to apply for it, that we have the right to fill that with a layperson.
Okay, Jesse Bond.
Just a quick process check-in, Mr. Mayor. When you started the discussion, I believe the staff direction was to track your consensus discussion so that we could possibly take a break and present a motion. I'm noticing that we've got both motions and consensus happening. So I'm happy to support you how you'd like to proceed. I just wanted to flag it for you so that we're on the same page before we get much further.
Okay, so let's just look for consensus on the, I'll get to your issue beyond this because it applies to any option we select. But is there thumbs up support for option C, the 221 configuration? Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I actually had my hand up for a while to comment before we did the thumbs up.
Okay.
if I may. You probably can infer from my second on Councilmember Weinberg's motion that I'm kind of against the whole concept, but despite that, I'm going to have comments along the way of things that I think will make it better if we end up with doing this. And this one is one of the most important ones to me because it gets at the issue of local control, which is one of my biggest concerns with the whole problem. With option A and perhaps somewhat with option C, but certainly with option A, we're ceding control to people that don't live on the island. And that seems very contrary to my interests. I think only islanders can really understand island interests. And I think to the extent that we want paid practitioners on the Planning Commission, I can understand the motivation for that. I think having 2 of them is enough, and having local people whose interests are aligned with islander priorities is very important. So of these, I strongly prefer option B. Having said that, I think Mr. Weinberg's proposal to modify all the options is something I would support as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And sorry I did not recognize your virtual hand in person in this meeting. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Old hand.
Okay. So feel free to raise your actual hand, and it will just make my life a little easier.
I
since
think I
we're
did
all
both,
here
but I'll try
today.
to be more conspicuous.
Okay, so I'm happy to retake that consensus. If there is support for option C, thumbs up. Which one? C, 221, the one that we've just, yeah. So you still have support for that, but I wanted to make sure I recognized your concerns, Councilmember Reynolds, because I missed you. Okay, so that will get us to the next one, Jeff Thomas.
Mayor, were you going to address the Councilmember Weinberg's
Oh, sorry, you're right.
modification to any of those options? Sorry.
So I'll be looking for consensus, and I will let you restate exactly what it is that you'd like to modify in the 221.
Sure. The suggested modification is that any position where we are unable to get qualified applicants who are paid practitioners, that we reserve the right to fill the seat with a layperson.
Okay. Can we explore reserve the right? Are we saying shall? Is this any vacancy shall be filled with the layperson? Because we have to write a municipal code for this. Or you say may?
I think may is probably the better language that reserves us the right to leave it vacant if we, for some reason, want to.
Can I offer a friendly amendment?
Please.
Like
No amendments, no
No.
motions. They're
No,
just looking
so-
for
all right,
consensus.
Consensus. So I'm worried about the time frame. Like, if we don't get somebody in a week, are we going to just appoint somebody? Like, I'd like to have 2 or 3 months to find that professional. I think we're looking for a unique skill set, and it's certainly for that one position, it's a Mercer Island resident who has the expertise we're looking for. So I'd like to say give us a little time.
Sure.
I don't know what the appropriate time frame would be. So maybe, I don't know, Jesse, on a professional Mercer Island person, getting paid whatever we decide to give them to do this work, 3 months, quarter, 2 months? Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, 90 days, 3 months sounds appropriate.
90 days then. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
We have consensus, maybe.
Hold on.
So 90 days in May.
May with
All right, so any open position may be filled with a layperson after 90 days.
May
Do-
I
do we
offer
need-
what I captured, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
I captured any vacancy may be filled by a layperson if unable to find a qualified paid practitioner within 90 days.
Well, that's much better.
Well, but would that be 90 days? Are we saying 90 days after the normal application process would have closed, or 90 days from when the regular application process opened? Because if I heard Councilmember Weinberg correctly, his concern was if we're not able to find someone in the recruitment process. Is that right?
Yeah,
So I think it would be
that's our
90
intent.
days post recruitment closing.
Or vacancy.
So 90 days from the close of recruitment,
Or I would say appointment of,
or 90 days from
why you need to put a 90 days in there. We have a recruitment period. Those who apply, apply. And if we have among the applicants people who are qualified professionals, then we have the option of putting them in. If we don't have any professionals, then we have the option of putting one of the lay people in there. And we also have the option, since it's a May, of leaving it vacant if we feel all the applicants are unqualified.
Okay, it's your, to you, so you decide. Do you need the clerk to read you the text?
Sure.
So currently, it states, any vacancy may be filled by a layperson if unable to find a qualified paid practitioner. And then there's the within 90 days post the recruitment closing or a vacancy.
A question for Councilmember Weicker. In terms of addressing the period, my intent was to have it just be part of the normal recruitment process. Do we need to specify the length of the recruiting process?
I'm just thinking about if we don't have enough applicants, or if somebody resigns, like, we need, with 5 people, I'm worried about a quorum, right? So I just,
So it sounds like if you were to drop that last bit, you would be where Councilmember Weinberg set off and where Councilmember Weicker, I think, just agreed. So let's take consensus around that. Council, do you want anything else, Councilmember Weinberg? Councilmember Reynolds?
No, just
Oh.
thumbs up.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like anybody needs it reread to them, so yeah, support for that. All right. I don't know if we need to go through each of these individually because the next, number 3, 4, and 5 are all definitions, but maybe we can get them on the screen.
Yeah, Mayor, I saved all of you the pain of putting the entire definition on the screen for each of these, but the key bullet points in each definition are outlined here. There's really no options here. It would be if any council members had specific amendments. I think we should probably just take these as a group.
Okay, we just lost one person here, but, so,
There's a hand up over there.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment, I'm not sure if this is time or place, but I think it might be. I'm a little troubled by restricting this to land use officials, or land use experience. In my experience in the Planning Commission, coming back to my earlier comment about everybody adding value, we had an architect on there that added a lot of value that was not a land use professional. We had at least one person, maybe 2, that were in urban planning, which I think is a different specialty than land use planning. That person added a lot of value. I could certainly see that, although it's a dirty word to say around here in some quarters, I think a builder could add value as well. I think anybody that kind of has experience in issues related to land use that is not a land use planner, I think potentially adds value and perspective to the process. So my consensus, my hope for suggested change to this, where everywhere it says land use planning, just have it say land use planning or related fields.
Okay, so it sounds like a question for staff. Maybe staff can opine on some of those assertions. Is there a difference in disciplines between, all of these land use professionals uncategorized, or the list that was presented in the definition? I'll turn it over to Jeff Thomas.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just following the direction from the March 1st motion from City Council, it seemed on March 1st like the desired direction of the council was to focus specifically on land use planning professionals, whether it be a planner like myself or an attorney like Theo. That was what we took from the motion. So in terms of mixing and matching things up, a landscape architect this is in my opinion, but a landscape architect, for example, won't offer the same understanding of the Growth Management Act and other state statutes that are in play here with doing a planning commissioner's job. So I think that's something for the council to discuss. Is the council willing to, look at its March 1st motion and maybe deviate from it or mix that up a little bit with other types of practicing professionals other than those in land use plan? Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you if the council wants to have that discussion.
Okay, Councilmember Jacobson.
I think, first of all, I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Reynolds, for saying something nice about builders. I'm going to take that to my next meeting. I think the way we could get ourselves out of this kind of jail is to take out the word professional. Because there may be people there, for example, there are lawyers, there are builders, there are engineers who have experience in land use planning, and that's the critical skill we're looking for, not necessarily what kind of hat the person is wearing. And so I would just delete the word professional from that definition, and then it becomes 5 years experience in land use planning, or whatever that says.
Okay, so council, thumbs up for Councilmember Jacobson's, to you, Councilmember Reynolds.
I'd just like to seek some clarification from staff or the council to make sure we understand intent. If we adopt that, would a builder or an architect or a civil engineer or an environmental scientist that had dealt with land use related issues be considered acceptable people to serve in that role? If the answer is yes, I can give my thumbs up. If the answer is no, I think we need to discuss it further.
Yeah, the answer.
Yes, and the 5 years is one of the weighing criteria, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate that, and if that's the intent, you got a thumbs up from me.
Okay, so staff, I want to make sure that we've captured that Councilmember Jacobson is proposing to expand the list to beyond land use professionals, is that right?
The 5 years experience in land use planning and in Washington.
He is not then
Pardon me?
planning, okay. We just need to be clear, because Councilmember Reynolds is looking to expand the list to include things like landscape architects and
Right.
builders. But I'm only hearing from you to remove the definition part that says paid professional.
No, I just said the word professional, and item number 5, any one of them, let's say 3, 5 years experience in land use planning. And
Yes.
the second bullet, or the second arrow.
Right, I want to be clear that land use planning has been defined as things that don't include landscape architects and builders and architects, in general.
Land use planning has a lot of things. There are, for example, there's a gentleman named Fred Glick, who lived in Mercer Island, and may still live in Mercer Island, who was a landscape architect who was responsible for a lot of what went on down in Portland with the TriMet Hall, which was urban planning, zoning, all kinds of things. And he would be somebody, in fact, he was on our planning commission, and he was on our design commission at one point. And he would be somebody who was manifestly qualified in land use planning. He was not a land use planner, he was a landscape architect. That was the license he had. And I think broadening it so that we can get, you can get somebody who's got the requisite experience, and then weigh that experience and say, okay, does this experience convert with what we're looking for? Because we as a city council would be evaluating that when we appointed these people, or when we assessed the qualifications and picked the people to be on the planning commission under this scheme.
So if we just put an EG in front of the list that is existing, does that accomplish what you need? For example, and then it's not restrictive, it's just directive?
I'm not sure I understand the specific change you're proposing, so,
So you have to look at your council packet.
okay.
So at the top of page 3, it says examples of qualifying positions for, and we're going to strike paid, professional experience, and then you could say, for example, include land use, municipal attorney, hearing examiner, and urban planner.
I would feel more comfortable if that also included architect, builder, or environmental scientist. List them further, because the fields that are listed there are so closely related that it might be read to exclude the other things.
Councilmember Jacobson, did you find that definition? I think you might be on the
Well,
wrong.
I guess I'm having trouble, but
It's on page 3.
Oh, up there.
I think you're on the wrong page.
Is it paragraph 5 you're talking about?
I thought we were on number 3, so I was on a bad hair day, but, the,
Mayor Neese, would you like me to bring the definition up on the screen?
Sure, that'd be great. I think everybody's struggling to find it.
well, I think those are somewhat, the examples are somewhat restricted. For example, I know somebody could say that, Roger Lee, recently deceased, he was never a municipal attorney, but he was neck deep in land use planning and litigation, he was a very knowledgeable guy about it. I think this is too restricted, and I'm sorry, I was in the wrong part of number 3. Or
Okay.
I was in number 2, I'm sorry.
So if you look at your screen there, the city clerk has added architect. What else do you want to add to the list?
Civil engineer, builder.
I think just engineer. Engineer and architect, and then that takes in all kinds of engineers and all kinds of architects.
But
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I still think it's a good idea to add for examples. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so the for example opens it up to, more than exactly the list.
I feel much better that it makes clear it's not prescriptive and it's conveying a broader universe of possibilities, to convey the flavor of what we're after.
Councilmember Andro.
yeah, I'm afraid it's gotten to be broad enough, though, with these additional words that it is not going to be a land use professional. I don't engineer of any kind. I don't know that an electrical engineer, with all due respect to their positions, what they would have to add. They're very smart and well-educated, but in terms of the nexus to land use decision-making, it's just not there. So I think that's too broad.
So what if it said after urban planner or, and then architect, engineer, or builder with land use experience? Something that qualified that subset? So on your screen, she's making that change.
That might be okay.
Does that do it?
Yeah, I mean,
Kind of restricts it.
this will be coming back, so, but yeah, for now, I could go with that if that's okay with them.
We'll see if we can get there with this.
Yeah.
Okay, so thumbs up for that modified definition. Looks like you got support for that.
Oh,
Jake,
one other
Is
clarifying.
that a thumbs up, Jake, or is that just scratching your chest? Abstaining from your own modified definition. It's bad form. Councilmember Randall.
Yeah, sorry, one other clarifying question. I'm assuming the 5 years of experience and 5 years in Washington can be concurrent.
That'd be a question for someone other than me.
That was the intent.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Was there a discussion on the other definitions of what a layperson is? I think that's generally regarded as,
Mr. Mayor, if we could put the 3 things back up on the board again?
yep,
that
can
would
we
be
get the
appreciated.
definitions again? And maybe the city clerk definitions that you were sharing. So we've got 3 knocked out. Let's go to 4. It's a layperson definition. Any modification of this? Not seeing anybody, okay, thumbs up to support 4. Looks like that's been adopted. 5, paid practitioner. Any changes to this?
Did you want to add the same change you added to 3 to 5? I added it.
I think that's right.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
So just to confirm then, is the word paid being struck in 3 and 5, or is it now being left in? Paid professional experience, the original, this conversation started originally with striking the word paid.
Right, so on 5, first sentence, paid would be struck, right? to be consistent with the new definition in 3?
I thought that all we had done in 3 was strike professional.
We
not paid.
didn't, it was striking
Or
professional.
professional, sorry.
I think
So
we,
we're striking the word professional in both definitions in 3 and 5.
okay. Council, thumbs up for this guy?
I have a question.
Councilmember Reynolds, or Jacobson, sorry.
I don't think paid makes any sense in this context. We take out professional. I think, experience, 5 years experience. If I didn't get paid for something, how does, but I was neck deep in everything. I don't know. Seems to me that it's unduly limited, particularly if we struck professional.
Okay, so are you suggesting, I'll get you, Councilmember Weinberg, do you have a specific change that you'd like to make?
Yeah, strike paid.
Strike paid
Not professional.
and keep professional, or just say experience?
I would strike both of them.
Okay.
No preference.
Councilmember Weinberg,
I think Councilmember Rosenbaum had his hand up
that's
first,
okay,
but-
go ahead.
Okay. I recommend that, along the lines of what Councilmember Reynolds was saying in terms of favoring on-island representation, I would like to suggest that we change the number of years required for paid practitioner resident from 5 to 3, so that there's more accessibility for the practitioners on the island, and make it a higher bar for those non-resident.
Okay, let's wait till she gets back down to our definition, because we're in the wrong one here.
Mhm.
So here you're suggesting in that second line, change 5 to 3?
Correct.
Oh, first and second, it's in there twice. Okay, Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I'll move on.
Okay, nothing there. Any other changes? Okay, all those supporting this, thumbs up. Looks like you got that. All right, moving on to meeting. Director Thomas, I'll let you cover kind of thoughts on meetings.
Yep, so 3 options here, up to 21, 16, or 11 meetings a year, broken out in parentheses for each one next to it. The Planning Commission at current has 11 regular meetings a year. That would be monthly, with the exception of August for summer recess. And then the supplemental meetings for 2 of the options include up to 5 special meetings or up to 10 special meetings. Except for this window of time that we're in right now with the comprehensive plan update, I would venture to say most months since 2022, when we went to 11 regular meetings per year, we've been generally in the vicinity of somewhere around 14 to 18 meetings a year on average, so a little less than twice a month as it used to be prior to 2022. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I heard that staff is generally expecting that B would be the option, and so I'm going to look for consensus around B unless somebody wants to. So I'll take questions first. Councilmember Reynolds?
Yeah, just a question for Mr. Thomas. Help me to understand what the implication is of A versus B. If we do B, which I think was the 11 plus 5, and we finish the 5 and realize, we really need one more to get it done, what happens then? Would we not be allowed to have that extra meeting?
Based on the 16 meetings per year maximum, yeah. We would be programming ourselves to a maximum of 16 meetings a year. We would be budgeting ourselves to a maximum of 16 meetings a year. So 16 would be the cap.
Setting expectations.
For what it's worth, my preference would be for option A with a goal of keeping it to 5, but I think it's important to give us the flexibility to have more if we need to.
Okay, I mean, I'm flexible. Councilmember Weinberg.
Yeah, I spent 4 years on the Planning Commission, and we met twice a month, and we got a lot done. And I think that option A, it feels a little light to me. Why not have 2 a month, 24? I guess we're only given 3 options here, but I'm wondering, why are we cutting back when we're saying we've got a backlog, we've got to get through it, we're adding staff to try and get through it. I'm a little puzzled as to why we're reducing the number of meetings.
It's the will of the council, Councilmember Weinberg, so
Well,
we'll
I recommend
take that vote, and
I
we'll see.
recommend we have a 4th option, which is to push it to 24. Just go back to where it was working before.
Okay. Any other discussion? I'm going to start with option B. Council, thumbs up for option B, which limits the numbers of meetings. Looks like you've got 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go up then to option A. All right, looks like option A it is.
That kind of felt like an auction.
Yeah. Well, let's not get to the end and then not buy anything. Number 7.
So item 7 is compensation options for the paid practitioners. Flat rate per year is option A, flat rate per meeting completed is option B, and then option C is a little bit of an offshoot of option B, where there'd be a base rate for the regular meetings, which would be 11 per year, and then a flat rate per special meeting completed. Mayor, back over to you.
Okay. So, Council, any questions on any of the compensation? I would suggest that we start paying with people what they do, not what they don't do. Councilmember Weinberg.
So we had an interesting data point at the beginning of the discussion, the agenda bill this evening, where we heard from MRSC that there are 3 cities that are paying their planning commissioners, and that the high watermark on that was $100 per meeting. And all of these are 2 times that or more.
This is, the one we're on right now is number 7, which is just how do you pay them, not how much you pay them.
Okay, I'll resume our comment until we get to 8. Thank you.
Yep. So I'm going to go with B if we want to start there. Thumbs up for paying people for meetings they actually conduct. Okay. Now we can get to number 8. And Councilmember Weinberg, do you want to carry on with your comments? I think you're saying all of these are too high.
Well, what I'm trying to get to
Those were Monroe, Duval, and
Bonnie Lake.
Bonnie Lake.
Yes.
Cost of living, just a little different.
Just a little, yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is if there's appetite for this level of spending on it, should we pay all the commissioners?
Okay, the question at hand is how much we pay the people that we're going to pay. If we want to have another separate item on paying other people, I'm happy to do that, but I would like to figure out the floor. Like, what are we trying to pay people for their services here?
Should we discuss whether we're paying all of them first, or should we, do you want to have that at the end after we've gone through all 11 of these things? I'm open to either.
It really doesn't matter. If you would look for consensus to pay everybody, we can do that right now. That seems simple to vote on. There's nothing more to that, right? You want to pay all the members of the Planning Commission?
$100 a meeting, sure.
No, I'm not conflating the two. Your option is to pay everybody, but then we're going to get to what we pay people separately.
I'm okay with splitting into 2 votes, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So all those in favor of paying basically the lay people, thumbs up. Okay, so that's not passing. Now we're back to paying the practitioners, A, B, or C. I don't know if staff had any comment on what they thought would be the amount that they could recruit to, if they had a recommendation on this. We don't want to set you up for failure.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't, it is a little bit of a mystery at this point. There was some input in the staff background work, thinking for the paid practitioners, the $500 per meeting completed felt like something that would be achievable to be able to recruit successfully for that, but we did provide two other options here, one higher and one lower.
Okay. So council, any questions? Is there any appetite to start with B? All right. Councilmember Reynolds.
I think I'm tempted to resign and run for the planning commission, but
Get paid more.
that bad joke aside, I work in consulting, and I have a general idea of what consultants are paid. And I've also served on the planning commission, and I know that meetings tended to run 3-4 hours, sometimes as long as 6 hours. Most required several hours of prep work as well. $500 per meeting, given the rate that a typical consultant would pay, seems wholly inappropriate to me, wholly inadequate. So of the options that are here, I think A is what I would prefer.
Okay. Remember, you have a safety release valve on unfilled seats, defaulting to lay people, so you're right.
So if my goal is to have more lay people in, maybe I should ask for $50 per meeting so we don't get any paid professionals.
Well, I'm not trying to massage the outcome, but,
I'm trying to seek the best on each position independently.
okay, I'm still going to start with B. So council, I'm be looking for thumbs up for $500 as a starting point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like you got 4 on 500, so we'll go with that in the motion.
Okay, and then Mayor, just for the record then, just so there's no confusion with our folks out watching this meeting in the public, the not to exceed amounts will need to be recalculated based on the option being 21 meetings per year A. So those not to exceed amounts will change because these numbers were generated based on just the middle of the road, option B for number 6 and option B for number 7 being selected.
Got it.
Wanted to add that to the record before we move along.
Thank you.
Okay, last slide. Item 9, paid practitioner poor performance, termination authority. Either the council or the manager, city council only or city manager only. The way the current code for the planning commission with appointed officials is structured is the city council appoints and can also remove appointed members of the planning commission. Mayor, back over to you.
Thank you. All right, City Council, would you like to stick with the standard, which is the council would remove? All right, thumbs up for option B. Looks like we're going to go with option B.
All right, nice and quick. Last item then, because we've already covered number 11, ethics code applicability. The decision point here is whether it applies to all planning commission members or only to the non-compensated members, which would be the layperson resident members.
Okay. Knowing my council, we're going to start with the highest ethical standard. Councilmember Jacobson?
I think everybody should be there, and I think that's what the state statute requires.
Yep, so option A, I'm hearing
Yeah.
option A. All right, all the way around.
Okay.
All right, with that, City Clerk, do you have all of the menu items 1 through 11?
Yes, I have your menu items of consensus on these 11 items. If we could take a brief recess for me to formulate a motion.
Okay.
That
So
would
the
be-
time is now 6:54. 10 minutes sufficient?
Oh, I saw a hand up over there.
10's enough for that? Councilmember Reynolds?
Just a quick clarification, if we're permanently reducing to 5, shall we interpret that to mean that we're just closing recruitment and don't appoint anyone for the 2 new seats, or does that remain to be determined? Because we're losing 2 people on the commission at the end of May.
This doesn't take effect until January, though, right?
No, hold on.
Okay, that's
Let-
true. So
Let me
will we-
let staff answer that, because I think there's some nuance there. Jesse Bond?
Yes, my understanding is that you would not make the appointments during this regular recruitment process, but know that I have to bring an ordinance back to you to change your code. So the direction tonight sets in motion a follow-up item, if not at the next meeting, quickly thereafter. No, it will be the next meeting. Actually, it has to be the next meeting.
For that issue alone, right?
That
As a
issue
As a
alone.
standalone to
I think
reduce to
this-
5.
This other item is going to require a little more runway to develop a new code.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we break for recess? Okay, the time is 6:55. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Okay, welcome back. The time is now 7:10 PM, and the council is resuming AB 6441. And the city clerk has prepared a motion based on the consensus discussion that occurred previous to this. And I'm going to ask the city clerk to put the motion on the screen. And I'm going to ask council if there is anybody who would like to make the motion as presented.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, seconded by Councilmember Anderall. And for the record, I'm going to read the motion that is displayed on the screen. Move to reconstitute the Planning Commission as follows. 1, effective date, January 15, 2025. 2, member composition, 2-1, paid practitioner, non-resident, layperson, resident, paid practitioner, resident. Any vacancy may be filled by a layperson if unable to find a qualified paid practitioner. 3, paid practitioner, non-resident definition, an individual not affiliated with Mercer Island entities or interests with a minimum of 5 years of experience in land use planning, as well as 5 years of such experience in the state of Washington. Examples of qualifying positions for experience, for example, include land use, municipal attorney, hearing examiner, urban planner, or architect, engineer, or builder with land use experience, demonstrated experience in public service, working with Growth Management Act, GMA, Shoreline Management Act, SMA, and State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA, as well as drafting of land use policies and codes preferred. This position will be compensated. Number 4, layperson resident definition, an individual with general interest in land use planning, environmental affairs, and/or economic development, demonstrated experience in public service and land use planning preferred, proof of Mercer Island residency required. This position will not be compensated. 5, paid practitioner resident definition, an individual with a minimum of 3 years of experience in land use planning, as well as 3 years of such experience in the state of Washington. Examples of qualifying positions: experience include land use, municipal attorney, hearing examiner, or urban planner, or architect, engineer, or builder with land use experience. Demonstrated experience in public service, working with the Growth Management Act, GMA, Shoreline Management Act, SMA, and State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA, as well as drafting of land use policies and codes preferred. Proof of Mercer Island residency required. This position will be compensated. 6, annual meeting frequency of 21 meetings, 11 regular meetings, up to 10 special meetings. 7, paid practitioner compensation would be a flat rate per meeting completed. Number 8, paid practitioner annual compensation maximum amount not to exceed $10,500, $500 per meeting. Number 9, paid practitioners poor performance termination authority is only with city council, only the city council can terminate. Number 10, ethics code applies to all planning commission members. 11, planning commission seats, permanently reduced the planning commission to 5 seats on June 1, 2024. Okay, council, any discussion? Councilmember Reynolds.
Yes, could we scroll back up to item 2, please? Yes, I'd like to propose an amendment. I would move to amend item 2, the motion by changing item 2 to insert the word resident before layperson, before the second occurrence of layperson.
Before the second occurrence of
Of
amend
layperson.
item 2 to insert the word resident where?
Before the second occurrence of layperson.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded.
Who is the second, Mr. Mayor?
It was Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, sorry.
Ms. Larson, are you finding it? I don't see the change being made.
I had to capture the amendment
Okay,
so that I have the text
okay.
of the amendment,
okay,
and now I can add it to the
okay,
document.
thank you. You want the one line down. There we go.
Okay. So we need to take a vote on the amendment to the motion. Any other discussion on that? Seems like a good clarifying change. All right, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Mayor Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Andral,
Aye.
Councilmember Weiger, and Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Okay, the amendment to the motion passes. Councilmember Weinberg?
So I have an amendment which I've typed up and sent to the city clerk and to the council. I will read it aloud. It's an amendment to, again, item number 2, to add a sentence saying, if more than 2 resident paid practitioners apply, the council should give preference to appointing resident paid practitioner applicants for any open non-resident practitioner positions.
Second.
Councilmember?
Okay, moved by Councilmember Weinberg, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds.
Would that be amend to add to item 2?
May I speak to it?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if she was going to put that on the screen or. Councilmember Weinberg, you can speak to the motion.
Yeah, so the intent here is to preserve representation on the island. And I do not know how many people who are paid practitioners who live on Mercer Island are going to apply. It might be we get 0. It might be we get 5. But if we get enough to fill all the paid practitioner positions, I think the island would be better represented by having island residents in all the paid practitioner positions. That's the reasoning behind the proposed amendment.
Yeah, so it does change the intent, but I mean, I'm willing to take the vote on the amendment to the motion. This does effectively undo a decision that we had consensus on already, which is that we wouldn't just pay everybody. So it's, I feel, a slightly different flavor of conflict, so that's why I'm going to accept taking the vote.
Well, it's not paying the lay persons.
I think when you replace everybody with paid practitioners, and now they're all Mercer Island residents, you've kind of undone the.
Well, maybe I misworded it, but what I meant, what I said was that the non-resident practitioner positions essentially we would prefer resident paid practitioners for that. I'm not saying we replace the laypersons with paid practitioners.
Yes, okay. Well, it does change the meaning of the whole, the makeup of having deconflicted off-island professionals working in tandem with lay people, so.
Right.
All right. Any other discussion?
I have a question.
Yep. Councilmember Andral.
What does should give preference to mean? Does that mean may? Or do you consider the relative qualifications of them? I'm really confused at what kind of guidance this would give us or a future council.
Yeah. So when I was drafting this, I was trying to decide whether to use the word should or shall or may in there. And initially I had shall in there, and I decided actually if there's a really qualified person and the person on island is barely qualified, if we have a should in there, we still have the agency to go with the off-island person. But if we make it a shall, then it kind of forces our hand on it. And I think if we say may, I don't know, that essentially leaves it pretty far open. I'd rather show a preference for on-island representation. Does that help?
Not really.
I mean, the thing is that you're fundamentally changing what is trying to be done here. And so, well, I'm going to allow the vote. I don't think that you're going to get the support to pass this. So I don't know that we want to spend a lot of our time arm wrestling on trying to make this work with any specific language. Not seeing a ton of interest.
There's a couple hands down there.
Yep. Councilmember Reynolds.
I think it goes a long ways towards addressing my primary concern with this, which is giving too much control to off-island interests. I think if there's any merit to this proposal in general, it's to get more professionals on the planning commission, which would have some advantages. Getting more off-island people, to me, creates disadvantages. I would much rather give preference to island people, and I think this is what this motion would do.
Yeah, but you're lowering the years of experience requirement from 5 to 3 when you go to on island, is that right? Did the residents have, so you're getting a different caliber of person serving when you do this?
I think that we'd have to go back and reread that section, but I read the 3 to apply to the non-resident positions, or to the resident positions.
Yes.
So I think they would still be subject to the 5 to be considered for the non-resident position.
Okay, Councilmember Jacobson.
I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve here, and that's, because I can see how this would split several different ways depending on, for example, a qualified resident professional would not be excluded from applying for a lay position, as I read this stuff. So, for example, if that person were deemed to be we thought happened to be the best, happened to be a professional who would otherwise qualify as a professional, that person could, and depending on how terms shake out and all this kind of stuff, somebody might want to come on board. I'm not quite sure how that plays, and that's why I'm not sure that this amendment is particularly helpful, but
Okay, Councilmember Weinberg.
I guess what I'm trying to do is to address the concerns that we received from dozens of island residents in our inboxes in the past 48 hours about representation on the island. And if we get enough applicants who are qualified as professionals and who happen to be island residents, I think that it would be responsive of us to our constituents to favor having island residents over people who are off-island.
Okay. Any other discussion? City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Mayor, I'll note that CPD Director Thomas had his hand raised.
I'm sorry, I'm out of the meeting. I was looking at email. Sorry, Director Thomas.
Sorry, real quick, different subject. Item 3, I believe there was an addition of the phrase "for example" in line 4. I think the council should just strike that because it's not needed. It wasn't included in item 5, and the sentence reads just fine because the sentence starts with the word "examples" of qualifying positions.
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah, it's in there twice.
Yep.
Council, any objection to that modification? No, I'm not seeing any. And City Clerk, that's fine, since we're going to adopt the motion that's on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we're back to the vote on the amendment to the motion, the amended motion. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, are we voting on the,
Amendment to the amended motion.
Would you like me to read the amendment that we're voting on? We're voting to amend item 2 to add 2 resident paid practitioners. If 2 resident paid practitioners apply, the council should give preference to appointing the resident paid practitioner applicants for any open non-resident practitioner position. That's what we're voting on.
no. No.
Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
No.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
yay.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Andral.
Nay.
Councilmember Weicker. And Mayor Neese.
Nay.
Motion fails.
Okay, the amendment fails. We're back to the amended motion. Any other amendments? Councilmember Reynolds.
Can you put the motion back up? I may have one, but I want to read the bottom part. Can you scroll to the bottom about pay? Okay, so I just want to clarify on item 8, that is 10,500 per paid person, not 10,500 in total, correct? that's 21 times 500.
Yeah, and I'll let Director Thomas answer that. I know the answer, but I'll let him
Yeah,
answer.
that is correct. So it would be per paid practitioner, not to exceed 10,500 per year, which is based on items 6 and 7, the selections there.
Okay, thank you. Other than that, no other questions or amendments, but I do have some comments to make when it's an appropriate time.
Sure. Councilmember Weinberg.
So I move to amend item number 11 to change the date to January 15th, 2025.
Okay, that would
I'll-
change things
I'll
substantially.
second that.
Moved by Councilmember Weinberg, seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. You want to speak to the motion?
It seems odd that we have a date at the top saying this doesn't take effect until January 15th, 2025, but at the bottom, we have part of it that is taking effect long before that. Seems contradictory.
So the city manager made some comments about that. I don't know if we need to clarify that for you, but the reduction in the size of the planning commission while we're at a point where 2 members are rolling off was the intent. So as long as you understand the reasoning for it, I'm happy to take a vote on the motion.
It still seems contradictory to me. I think if we have an effective date, it should be the effective date.
I think the intent was that you didn't go recruit somebody for 7 months, 6 months, 5 months of service, and then just reduce the size of the commission. So that's the intent.
So
But I'm happy if there's
council-
no other discussion. Go ahead, Director Thomas.
Sorry, yep. If the council approves that amendment, then we'll need additional direction then on whether to fill the 2 vacancies that are coming up at the end of May or not for that small window of time.
Got it. Okay. Council, any further discussion on that? Councilmember Reynolds.
Just briefly note, I think this is a good idea. I think more people, as I commented earlier, provide more perspective and make better decisions. We have a huge number of very important decisions to make related to the comp plan update and numerous other things happening between now and the end of the year. I'm fully supportive of this.
Okay. Not seeing any other discussion.
Well, Just
Councilmember Weinberg.
another comment. Essentially, it means item 1 is moot, that this is taking effect in June, because the sooner of the 2 dates is June 1st, 2024. The 2 are contradictory, so effectively, if you're saying we're kicking 2 people off on June 1st, then that's the effective date of this change.
Okay,
Mr.
I
Mayor,
think the city manager did add context to that. If you want to characterize it that way, that is on you, but that was not what I heard from the city manager. Councilmember Anderl.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, you can choose to reduce the size of the planning commission to 5, independent of any of these other changes, and that's what we're doing. And so there's no contradiction.
Yeah, I believe that's what the motion would do. But this amendment would undo that. So, City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Nay.
Mayor Neese.
Nay.
Councilmember Andral.
Nay.
And Councilmember Weicker. Motion fails.
Okay, we're back to the amended motion. Any other amendments? Okay, City Clerk, please call the roll.
I did say it's further comments, though.
Oh, sorry. Councilmember Reynolds.
If I may make those now. First, I want to start with thanking my fellow council members. I think with the changes, we've ended up with something much better than it started and much better than it could have been. I'll still be voting no, though, for a couple of reasons that I wanted to lay out. One is the cost. We're looking at $31,500 a year, which is a non-trivial cost for a city with a tight budget. The second is I'm very concerned about potential conflicts of interest and the potential that will have for limiting recruitment possibilities. Many people that might be qualified professionals would be people that would not want to create conflicts for themselves by serving in this role. Third is one of morale for the planning commission members that are non-compensated. I think it would be, I know I would personally feel very troubled if I was serving on a board or commission where people around me are getting paid and I'm not. I think it's an act of extreme disrespect, and I think there's a decent chance that some members of the Planning Commission will resign before we, once we approve this, if we do approve it. We'll create another problem there that will slow down the Planning Commission progress in a period where we have an immense amount of work to do. I'm worried about the practicality and the challenges of finding people. We've heard from the city manager in the past that recruiting land use professionals to work in the CPD on a permanent basis is challenging in this market. I think finding these part-time people will be challenging as well. And I don't know how we're going to fill those positions, especially for this rate of pay. I think it's a very low rate of pay for the work that's involved. And the last and most important thing is I think we're ceding control to, not as much as we were, because it's only 2 of the 5 positions, but ceding a lot of the local control to off-island interests, and that seems so contrary to many of the things we've been working with on the council and testifying before the legislature and other places to try to get local people that understand local issues making local decisions. That seems contrary to everything we've been working on, and I can't support that.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum.
Yeah, I made the motion, but I am going to support this. I think it's an interesting philosophical question here. And I think some of this is that we need to look forward and look backwards. So looking backwards is that we have a backlog. And we need to increase the speed at which we are able to move through some of these land use items. I think that we've taken sort of a 4-pronged approach here. One is that we've been clear on our prioritization. That was something we did at our council retreat. We added a position. This is the third. And I think the fourth is our continued advocacy at all the levels of government to make sure that everyone understands the decisions that are made at the county level, the state level, do have an impact and do affect the agency of our and the ability of our city to do things. Is my mic coming in and out? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, all the mics are.
I think, and looking forward, this is going to continue. We're going to continue to have things that are put on the Planning Commission, put on the council from other places other than Mercer Island. And I think that if we have any hope of getting to the issues that are raised by our residents as it comes to land use, or raised by the staff in ways that we can improve our code that are specific to Mercer Island, we have to think of ways to increase the pace that we're getting through these items. If you look at what is on the agenda now, there are a lot of things that have come down from the state. And I will be willing to bet that in the long session next year, we get at least one item, and it's probably a pretty big one, that will require immense planning commission time. And I think with the focus on housing that has come through, we're going to continue to see pressure. We're going to continue to see other agencies ask us to do more and to change the way that we're doing things. And I think we need to be equipped to do that work and also be forward-thinking to handle some of the questions and the challenges that are raised by our residents. So I think that this change allows us to do all that because, as I said, it's part of a larger package. And I think that we're able to sort of increase our speed of doing these things in a way that allows us to be more nimble and really address the variety of concerns that are brought to the council when it comes to land use issues.
Thank you. Councilmember Weicker.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm going to support this tonight. I think it's an innovative experiment to see how this works, and I'd love to have this conversation 2 years from now to see if we got the outcome that we're trying to get here tonight. So let's give it a shot. Let's deal with this backlog. Let's deal with more work that's coming our way. And Duval, Monroe, and Bonnie Lake went first. I was surprised and encouraged to see that. So let's see how we can make it work here to support our residents and the work we need to do, and then take a look and fix it if we're not doing it and getting the outcome we want.
Councilmember Andrew.
Thanks. Yeah, I concur with the Deputy Mayor and Councilmember Weicker. I also don't think that Councilmember Reynolds' concern is necessarily well placed in terms of volunteers working alongside paid professionals. And we see that successfully in so many areas. Here at the community center, at the thrift shop, these the paid professionals are being compensated for their specific expertise. The lay people are valued for their expertise as residents and their opinions on what the island's priorities are, but the decision about whether you pay someone or not, I don't think that you would necessarily choose to pay them all, and I don't think it's going to push people out. People care about this community, and people want to be involved. So I'm very happy about the how we have mitigated the concerns about local control, that we have not put a majority of off-island people on. And so the concerns I came into this with and the concerns I expressed at the last meeting, I think have largely been ameliorated by this good discussion tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, not seeing any other discussion. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Mayor Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Weinberg,
Nay.
Councilmember Weicker, Councilmember Andral,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum,
Aye.
and Councilmember Reynolds.
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. We now move to other business in the planning schedule, and we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Looking ahead at April 16th, I just wanted to let you know we've added 2 items to the agenda that are not yet reflected. We were going to provide a presentation, a study session, discussion only on the planned improvements on 80th. That's mostly a sidewalk project. Just to get your eyes on it, just before we go to bid for awareness. So that's coming on the 16th. I originally was going to plug it in on the 7th, but we had staff that weren't available. We are also adding an agenda item regarding alternative bidding opportunities, alternative construction opportunities for the public safety and maintenance building. And I'll be scheduling that either on April 16th or May 7th. So those items aren't reflected on your agenda. I did want to note that I am out of the office next week. If anyone else is going to be gone, we don't have a meeting next week, but just for awareness, it's spring break for those of us that have young people in school, so I wanted to make sure I let you know. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you. All right, Council, are there any upcoming council absences to report? Councilmember Reynolds.
I won't know for a little while here, but I may be absent on the 16th. 16th of
April
April.
16th?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Councilmember reports. Deputy Mayor Rosenbaum, anything to report?
I want to give a thank you. There was a street sign in my neighborhood that was, I think, knocked down over the weekend. I, of course, forgot to put it into the See Something, Fix It, whatever it's called.
See-Click Fix.
See-Click Fix app, but I think one of my neighbors did, and by this morning, it had been, I actually ran into the crew that was replacing it. I said thanks. I don't think they knew who I was, but I said thank you, and it is really amazing. I mean, that sign could not have been down for more than, I don't know, 36 hours, and I just want to say thanks to the team for getting that done quick. There's a PIC meeting next week. I think all of my assignments have meetings in the next 10 days, so I will be busy, but I'll report back. Thank you.
There was a meeting of the GMPC last week. There was an update to the work plan. The work plan was adopted for 2024. The Affordable Housing Committee reported back to the GMPC on comprehensive plan housing element review. And so far, they reviewed 2 housing elements for King County and for the city of Redmond, neither of which went swimmingly well. Both will be returning to jurisdictions with extensive comments. So there's more to come on housing element and comprehensive plan adoption, even kind of post-passing at the council level. Councilmember Weicker. Councilmember Weinberg.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Reynolds.
You just want to comment that the Parks Commission and the Open Space Commission met, I think, 12 days ago or so, continuing to make progress on the portion of the parks rezone related to open space. If my memory serves, Councilmember Andral was there for representing the open space, and Councilmember Jacobson was there warming up for his role in taking over the open space. So, kudos to him for making the extra meeting. I thought it was an extremely productive meeting. Spent time talking about the purpose of the park zone, allowed uses, had some fascinating discussions about art in parks and restrooms in parks and art in restrooms and various combinations thereof. Parking, another important thing, transit stops, temporary uses, signs, kiosks, a very wide-ranging discussion, but very well organized. My hat's off to the chair of the 2 groups. I think we're going to come up with something good.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Anderl.
What Greg said.
Councilmember Jacobson.
I second the motion of my colleagues Reynolds and Anderl about that open space PRC meeting.
Very good. All right, the next hybrid meeting of the City Council is scheduled for Tuesday, April 16, 2024 at 5 p.m. The time is now 7:40 p.m. The City Council will go into executive session for approximately 60 minutes to discuss with legal counsel pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I, and 2, to consider the selection of a site of or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration would cause a likelihood of increased price pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101B. No action will be taken following the executive session. As a reminder to the council, please stay seated until city staff has terminated the broadcast. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight.